Hey everybody, Black Ninja 797 here, and welcome back to another video. And today's video, I'm going to be ranking all the playable characters within Call of Duty Zombies. When it comes to this list, these are going to be the parameters for how I'm going to be ranking these characters. Number one is that this is going to be my own opinion. I am not going to be ranking them off of anything else other than that. I am also going to be only ranking the characters based off of their in-game voice lines. I'm not ranking them off of anything else because the in-game voice lines is how I best know these characters, and I'm sure that's going to be the case for you. And lastly, when I say playable characters, I mean the characters that you see in the first person that are part of your normal crews that we've had from World at War all the way to Black Ops 4. I'm not counting things like operators from Cold War. I'm not going to be counting technical character switches such as, for example, when Sam and Richtofen swap souls on Moon. I'm just going to be basing off the characters that you always play as 99.9% of the time within Zombies. Please feel free to share your guys' list in the comment section down below with me, and let me know how you guys would rank the characters and why. I'm really curious to see if you guys would have the same opinions as me, or if they're going to slightly differ. If you guys also enjoy the video, by the way, please also drop a like. It helps out with the algorithm and lets these videos get recognized by more people. But with all that being said, guys, I hope you end up enjoying this ranking video. Alrighty, so coming in at the very first spot, and even in my mind, I technically don't even want to add them onto the list because they're that irrelevant in my opinion, and this is going to be the soldiers from World at War. These are going to be the ones that you would hear on specifically Verrucht, because this is the only time that they're ever featured is in Verrucht World at War. The World at War soldiers on Verrucht are so forgettable that when you go to a tier list, there's no listing for the World at War soldiers whatsoever. It doesn't list them on there at all. So you have to remember to put them in there on your own accord, otherwise they're technically not going to be something that you can rank. Nobody ranks them. They are just something that is forgotten with the passage of time. I originally was not going to include them in the list, but I knew that somebody would say something had I not, so I decided to put them in anyway. Okay, so now that we have mentioned the soldiers from World at War, here is technically my actual first pick, which means that this is going to be my least favorite character. This is going to end up being Marlton from the Victus crew. Marlton is the worst character we have ever had within Call of Duty Zombies. He is the worst possible stereotype of any of the characters in the entire franchise. He is supposed to be what is the equivalent of the Call of Duty Zombies Peter Parker, that nerdy character that it feels like everyone can relate to and actually secretly loves. But they failed miserably because all he is just annoying. This character is not threatening, his character is not necessarily funny, his character is just plain and simply frustrating to listen to. He is the personification of the absolute worst stereotype for a nerdy person, and it makes it so that way he is insufferable to listen to. He may, at the very most, have like 2 voice lines in total that I genuinely do like, and all they are is just roasts of his other teammates within his crew, and they're just something that a 12-year-old would say. One of them's like a dick joke, and then the other one is just some random insult, but that feels like a cheap laugh and not that was actually funny. And the most baffling thing about Marlton is that for some reason, Misty is fallen head over heels for him. I cannot explain it. Misty says all these super sexual things to Marlton, when Marlton, the type of character that he is, if this was somebody in real life, they would be gawking at the idea of what Misty is implying to him. And yet this is the character that has a voice line where he says that the idea of kissing is disgusting to him. He is the embodiment of a overly punctuated, super nerdy, smart aleck, basic loser character. The Victus crew as a whole basically sucks in my opinion. There's a lot of crews in Call of Duty Zombies that just suck, but Marlton is the worst of all of them just because he is the most unenjoyable of all the stereotypes within his given group. Ultimus Takeo. It's very sad how that one of the main characters of Call of Duty Zombies is one of the worst in the entire franchise. Ultimus Takeo is another just bad stereotype. His voice lines are so repetitive and boring after a while. It'd be one thing if he had a cliche line here or there, but it's just all the time. His character is literally the embodiment of what sounds like racism when you think about it. Because since he's Japanese, his stereotype is, honor this, I must honor the emperor. And it's like, I'm sounding like I'm racist, but I'm just repeating his fucking voice lines. Like, you could go listen to it. It sounds like I'm making it worse than it is, but I'm not joking you. He literally does not shut the fuck up about those two subjects. It's always honor and the emperor. It's just so bad. Ultimus Takio sounds like a Family Guy cutaway character. That's how bad that he is stereotyped. It's not fun to play as Takio. I am so glad that the premise version of Takio, which is going to be much higher up on the list, has better voice lines and better character development, because it would be such a shame if they botched Takio twice. Russman. Russman, in my opinion, is another just bad stereotype. His gimmick is essentially that he's an old man that's losing his mind. Now, yes, I know there's going to be some people being like, oh, technically he's associated with Broken Arrow and he's got so big of a storyline element because of that. Sure, if you really want to reach, but I'm not trying to base the character off of what he was. I'm trying to base it off of what he is. And what he is just an old man. He's not funny. He's just really just kind of sad and pathetic as a character. Sure, he's got occasionally a couple one-liners here or there. He's not horribly insufferable like Takio or Marlton, but only by a little bit. Like, literally just by a little bit, enough that he's not the very bottom of the list. I just don't like listening to Russman. Sometimes if I get Russman, just like I do with Marlton or Takio, it's enough for me to want to reset my game until I can pull a different character. I just don't like Russman. He's not fun. He's really just a bad stereotype once again, where it's just the same loop of voice lines over and over and over again. The subjects really don't change. One might be a poop joke, one might be about him losing his mind, one of them might be about how his hip's been thrown out, even though he may have only walked like 5 feet. It's just not an empowering character. It's not somebody that I look forward to play as. When I play a video game, I want to play as a character that I would like to be. I don't want to be anything like Russman. Russman is just a not fun character to play as, because he is what I don't want to be when I'm playing video games. Christina Fowler, I believe is how you pronounce it. Basically, this character is just going to be another stereotype. She's supposed to be what is the equivalent of a psychic on Dead of the Night. Now, Dead of the Night is one of my favorite maps in zombies, but I don't like the characters. I did a play as her, funnily enough, when I ended up getting my highest round ever at round 70 on Dead of the Night. Now, I eventually did just start to tune out because my character was talking at, like, what was 5 a.m. in the morning, so all the character voice lines and dialogue just fell in the background for me. And I don't remember her being the most annoying of a character. She was just more rather boring instead. No character after, I would say, the first 3 that I've listed so far are going to be necessarily annoying. They're just either boring or sometimes forgettable. Scarlet from the Chaos Crew. Now, out of the entire Chaos Crew, Scarlet is my least favorite, because for some reason, after listening to her voice lines more often, I've come to the conclusion that her character is just a bitch. She complains, she's nagging, she's annoying, she basically roasts all of her teammates and only compliments them for the bare minimum in order to end up functioning as a group. She says she wants to find her dad, but she does nothing but complain about her dad, and so it really just gives the feeling of like, oh, my dad can offer something, but I don't actually care about him. She is a character that can be stereotyped if you wanted to give it to one, is basically daddy issues. Jonathan Warwick. Now, this character is another one from Dead of the Night, and the only reason why he's just ever so slightly higher than Christina is because he feels more menacing, more imposing, and more threatening. Jonathan feels like he's got a couple of battle cry moments where he's really getting into the fight, where he's talking about, you know, killing the zombies in certain ways, and how he's going to survive, and, you know, badass line this, that, and the other. It's not necessarily all the time, but it's much better than Christina's character development. But a little gripe that I do have with this character is because his accent is so specific. It always sounds like whenever I'm listening to him that he's always choking on something. Bruno from the Chaos Crew. He's very similar to Jonathan, where he's the big bulking Hulk dude of the group, and he does have a little bit of better dialogue and does seem a little bit more cool in my opinion, where he does seem more threatening. but not by much. The character just falls flat at times because I'm not really invested in him. He doesn't really have any cool story other than, talking about sometimes his occasional trauma, but even then he's vague about it, so it's kind of hard to get invested on what exactly the issue with him was. There is technically what happens with Ancient Evil, where he does become what is basically implied evil at the very end, where he ends up getting the symbol on his head and he's going around trying to kill people like Shaw. But that's really not enough for me to like him as a character. It's just more of a plot twist. His character had potential, but just falls flat for me, IMO. Gideon Jones, or in this case, Scarlet's father, because we do play as him within Dead of the Night. Now, you would think that because Scarlet talks so much mad crap about him that he must be this awful person and like the bad guy of the group, but I really don't get that vibe from him. I just think of him as someone that doesn't have really good manners and is just kind of a smart aleck. And to be honest, a lot of the characters from Dead of the Night are just filler. I know that they were supposed to have more meaning, but they're really only ever in one map and have all the celebrity cast members. This is the weakest in my opinion. I think that the Dead of the Night crew is probably one of the weakest things about the entire map. I just really do not feel invested into these characters, and so because they fall so flat, Scarlet's dad is easily forgotten, and it's really just a face to a name at the end of the day. Next is Godfrey. This is the butler of Dead of the Night, and this is probably my favorite character on Dead of the Night, honestly, because I think that this character is funny in a way because it just seems like out of character for him to try to be all violent and imposing and threatening because he's just the calm British butler type. And because he's so professional and he tries to like keep his cool all the time, when he's trying to be threatening and imposing, it just seems goofy, but also at the same time threatening. I don't know why, but the delivery is what I would call cheesy, where like I get the feeling they're trying to portray, but because of the setting and just the goofy atmosphere around this character, it's not necessarily threatening, it's just more rather like very, very cheesy. Stuhlinger from the Victus crew. Okay, so Stuhlinger, there's times where I like the guy and there's times where I don't like the guy. Normally, whenever I listen to him, I get the most boring and basic of voice lines from him, and I also get a lot of interference from Richtofen because his character can hear him in his head. So, in a way, I'm sort of associating Richtofen with Stuhlinger, but they're technically two separate characters. I can't say that the voice lines that Richtofen gives is development or associated with Stuhlinger's character, because they're different characters. But when I researched some voice lines for all the different characters to make this video, there was parts where I ended up landing on some funny voice lines, and Stuhlinger has some funny voice lines, which make me think of like a very cheesy B comedy movie, where because all the characters, since they are stereotypes, you got Marlton as a nerd, and then Misty as the tomboy cowgirl, and then Russman as the old man, and Stuhlinger as what would be the weird conspiracy theory guy. All of them, when they're blended together and they talk, they can sometimes have some just funny conversations and roasts and just weird voice line quips, and that's generally good voice lines to listen to because they're humorous. But other than the weird humor, I really just don't care for Stuhlinger all that much. He is a character that was a means to an end for what was the Richtofen story of him taking over the Earth. But without Stuhlinger, I feel like you still could have achieved that same idea. It's just that they wanted to give us another character so that way they could relate it to Richtofen, I guess. Jessica Rose from Shadows of Evil. Now, I love Shadows of Evil, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with Jessica as a character. It's just that she doesn't have that it factor. She feels kind of, in a way, forced. She's trying to sound threatening and imposing, and I know that all these characters did do horrible deeds, and they did things like murder and all that stuff, but I don't really feel like this threatening, imposing ambiance around Jessica like I do, for example, like Floyd or Jackie Vincent. Jessica just doesn't do it for me. She just seems like she's just kind of a character that is trying to be intimidating, but trying a little too hard, you know? She seems forced. She doesn't seem as organically menacing as the other characters. And she's not really humorous either. I feel like with a Call of Duty Zombies character, the best ones thrive off of either being menacing or having humor. And Jessica doesn't really have either. She just kind of has a jack-of-all-trades approach where she's got a little bit of all the above, and in a way that doesn't make her necessarily bad, it more rather just makes her average. Misty from Black Ops 2. So I've got 2 reasons why I put this character up on the list. Sarah Michelle Gellar from Call of the Dead. Now, I believe that Sarah is the best female playable character we've ever had in zombies because she genuinely is a good character. The other ones, in my opinion, have bad stereotypes or connotations about them and don't represent them necessarily in the best of light. The reason why Sarah Michelle Gellar is a good zombies character is because she's just being herself. And as far as I'm aware, she is a decent human being from what I've heard about her. And she is a fun character to play as. I don't get any bad vibes from her, and she's not pretending to be something that she is not. Nero from Shadows of Evil. So Nero is voiced by Jeff Goldblum, and because he is voiced by Jeff Goldblum very much shines and is very noticeable within this character. Here's the thing with Nero is that I don't really have any sort of way to describe this character. You kind of have to just listen to him to know and get the feel for Nero. Jeff Goldblum takes over his character so much to the point where it doesn't feel like Jeff Goldblum is playing Nero. It feels like Nero is playing Jeff Goldblum. The character is just very weird and methodical, but it's intriguing because it's so captivatingly weird. The way that Jeff Goldblum portrays Nero is if ADHD was a person. Richard Nixon from 5. Now, here's the funny thing when it comes to the presidential cast from 5 is that my dad is very much into United States history and knows all the United States presidents. He can do pretty good imitations of all of them, and all I think of when I think of Richard Nixon on 5 is just my dad doing a goofy impression of him talking about crooks and goddamn hippies and all whatever, and it just makes me laugh. It's more of a positive memory than actually liking the character. There's nothing really wrong with the character, but I'm just not invested in Richard Nixon overall as a person. I never really was. That's more my dad's thing with United States history. And the way that I look at it is that Nixon is just another president within our history. I really have no attachment to him. I more rather just have attachments to the fun memories that I have with my dad. Shaw from the Chaos Crew. Now, this is my favorite Chaos Crew member, which is weird because I never used to think this about Shaw. I used to find Shaw pretty jarring back when I first played Black Ops 4, but he's in a way grown on me because after listening to some of his voice lines, I realized that he can be quite funny at times, although be it sometimes very strange. How do I describe this? So basically, he's got some very out-of-pocket voice lines, and unless I showed you a picture, you would never believe me within 1,000 years. There is quite literally, verbatim, one of the voice lines that goes as the following. I have snorted dried tiger penis. Swallowing this swill is a new low. That is a actual voice line from a character in Black Ops 4, and people wonder why the Chaos story got canceled. So other than the occasional out-of-pocket voice line, Shaw is probably the best character out of the entire group. And that's weird because I didn't expect that of him when I first originally started playing with him back when Black Ops 4 first launched, but his character grew on me. His character is the Chaos version of Richtofen, essentially, for this group. Robert Englund from Call of the Dead. Now, I never played Call of the Dead a lot. I've only played it a handful of times because I never owned the DLC back in the day. But when I started to listen to the voice lines for Robert Englund, I would say this, is that he fits this role really well. The zombie kick-ass survivor fits him as a character. The vibe I get from him is the old man that you underestimate, and is probably one of the most savage and ruthless and kick-ass characters in the entire group. He just fits this role, in my opinion, so well that I would like to actually see him do more of this exact type of role in future media if he would ever be interested in it in the future. Floyd Campbell from Shadows of Evil. This guy, in my opinion, is a scary motherfucker. I don't know why, but the inflections and the way that he delivers voice lines just sounds very ruthless and unforgiving. I honestly believe out of all the Shadows of Evil characters, other than Jackie, I feel like that Floyd genuinely is a bad and evil person because he seems like he doesn't have any remorse whatsoever for the deeds that he has done. I feel like that Nero and Jessica are probably the most innocent, whereas Jackie and Floyd are the most genuinely bad people. And even though Jackie is kind of screwed up as a character, I feel like Floyd means it more when he talks about the things that he says. I don't think that he ends up feeling bad whatsoever with the fact that he killed somebody. I think that he's actually completely content with himself, and out of all the characters, he genuinely deserves to be in this situation the most. And because of that exact reason, he has the same appeal as the Mob of the Dead gangsters. Because he's so unforgivingly ruthless, he just feels powerful to play as. You feel like this bad motherfucker when you're playing as Floyd, and you feel awesome killing zombies when you're hearing him just talk about the brutal things that he's going to do to them. Fidel Castro from 5. Now, it's weird. Unlike Richard Nixon, I feel like that I have more knowledge and can give more of a valid opinion on Castro as a character in this map, because I remember distinctly watching a Mr. T Lexify video where he was talking about Fidel Castro, the real life one, and talking about his association with the Call of Duty Zombies version of himself. And it was a very interesting watch. If you guys have never seen it, you should go check it out. It gives a bit of a different perspective for the map. And even after listening to his voice lines again, I would say that Castro from 5 is very well done. It feels very authentic. It feels like if there was actually a zombie apocalypse and Castro was involved in it somehow, that this is the things he would say and do. Diego from the Chaos Crew. Now, Diego is normally a character that I wouldn't end up liking. He is a stereotypical player bad boy flirt character, where he's just hitting on all the women, overly confident, and talking about, you know, just enjoying life and partying and all that stuff. But the way that he does it is not bad, in my opinion. It's definitely there, but for him, it's not done to death. He, in a way, kind of reminds me of the character I love to hate, like Nick or Francis from Left 4 Dead, where they've got some qualities that can end up annoying me, but I don't necessarily find it that bad that I can't stand the character. I would rather play as a character that is enjoyable to listen to, fun to play as, or somebody that just has character development, unlike the other people that we've listed at the beginning of the video, where they're not fun to play as, or they're annoying to listen to. Finn from Mob of the Dead. Now, the way that I want to describe Finn is held back. His voice lines don't feel as genuine as the other three. I feel like they want to take this character in a slightly different direction, and they just didn't do that. Unlike Weasel, he feels like he's trying to be like Billy and Sal, but forced into that role. He doesn't give me the ruthless killer vibe as much as the other two. I feel like that he's more similar to Weasel than he is similar to Billy and Sal. That's just my take. I don't know why I'm getting that feeling, but he just doesn't feel as ruthless as the other two, and so it feels kind of forced for the way he delivers lines, and it just doesn't feel as genuine or authentic as it could be. Maybe it's because Sal and Billy are so good at the roles that they play that maybe Finn just doesn't keep up in comparison, but I don't think it's entirely that either. I just feel there's something that is a nagging suspicion in my mind that makes me think they wanted to do this character slightly different and give him a different type of character arc, and they didn't do it, and so that's why it just feels off to me. Weasel from Mob of the Dead. Now, there's two main reasons why I put Weasel here in this spot in the list. Number one is the implications and the storyline elements of him, and two, I just also like the differences between him and the other three characters. I feel like that out of all the other characters, Weasel is the most human, and he seems almost like the protagonist or the one single good guy outlier within the group, because he is the one that does get betrayed, and that's why they're doing this loop over and over and over again. And that's also why within the Mob of the Dead Easter egg, it's him against the other three. He's the underdog, the one that you want to root for in the end, and so sometimes when I want to mix it up and I don't want to play as the other three, I'll sometimes just play as Weasel because I just want to chill and listen to some more storyline-based voice lines than just talking about just killing everyone and how they're going to mutilate the zombies. Ultimus Nikolai. Now, for some of you, Ultimus Nikolai might be one of your favorite characters. And the reason why I put him in this particular spot of the list is because he is a good character and I like playing as him and he can be funny at times, but there was something that my one friend pointed out to me which kind of changed my opinions on Nikolai. So my friend Jake, his stance is that he doesn't like Ultimus Nikolai because his stereotype is just gross and obnoxious. So he doesn't really particularly like the fact that he's just burping and making fart jokes and talking about drinking and fourth wife this all the time. It's overdone in his opinion. And when I heard that from my friend Jake, I listened to the voice lines again with that in mind, and it kind of changed my perspective on things. Yes, his stereotype is very much that. Fourth wife this, drinking vodka this, poop and fart joke that, and for some people that's funny. Some people have that sense of humor, including me, which is why it doesn't necessarily bother me that much. But I can understand and appreciate why my friend wouldn't particularly care for that type of character. Because yes, at times, I've even noticed that. I have at times wanted to play as Dempsey or Richtofen because of this exact reason. Nikolai can sometimes just be way too much. Sometimes I don't want to hear about fourth wife and fart this and poop that if I'm not in the mood for it. Sometimes I need a break from it, and that's why I'm putting this character in the middle-ish of the list, is because sometimes Nikolai is just way too much. Primus Takio. This is how you do a character. Primus Takio is so much more fun to play as in comparison to the Ultimus version. The Primus version of Takio is cool. I think that he is a really badass character. He's got some really just genuinely interesting voice lines because it's not about Emperor Honor this anymore. His character just feels more fleshed out, and it makes it more fun to play as him. If I end up getting Ultimus Takio, I can sometimes just reset the match just until I get somebody else. If I get Primus Takio, I can get excited at sometimes because I don't necessarily think that he's that much appreciated. I feel like he's undervalued, honestly. I think that Primus Takio is probably one of the most underrated characters we've ever had. Danny Trejo from Call of the Dead. I think that Danny Trejo is once again just another fun overall character to play as. He feels like he genuinely is a threat to the zombies and not the other way around. I feel like that if it was just Danny Trejo and he was just against all the zombies in the entire world, the man would fight to the very bitter end. The man is very fun to play as, got lots of really good voice lines, and overall just a really great character. And I think that you guys are going to appreciate him more if you were to play the map. Robert McNamara from 5. Now, just like some of the other characters that have been on this list before, I really didn't feel connected to him in the beginning. But then I listened to some of his voice lines via videos on YouTube, and I actually started to get more attached to the character. There are some voice lines that I've never heard from him because I've always just died on early rounds on 5, and so now listening to them, I'm like, oh shit, that's actually really cool. I think that his voice lines are pretty funny. I love how that he's kind of a kiss-ass to JFK in particular. That's one of my favorite parts about his character. He's like JFK's ultimate best bro, and so he's going around trying to like help him out, compliment him, saying like, I got you, Mr. President, yada yada this, yada yada that. It's actually kind of wholesome in a way. So if you end up getting a lobby where someone is Robert and someone is JFK, it's going to feel like the ultimate bro session. And funnily enough, right after that, we've got JFK himself. Now, other than the fact that this is just JFK, this also feels like a great rendition of JFK. I can totally, 100% see JFK, the actual man himself, saying the things that he does within the map. They try to give him these voice lines where when he picks up like a certain weapon out of the box or talks to his colleagues, it's like he's giving like a presidential speech, which is cheesy and funny as hell. I overall just love the execution of JFK. I just realized how bad that sounds. Anyway, too late now, let's keep going. Billy from Mob of the Dead. Once again, just another very well done character. Billy's a total badass. It's just such a shame that his voice actor has since passed away, so if there ever is a Mob of the Dead remaster of any kind, we wouldn't be able to get new voice lines, which is just a damn tragedy. But I just love this character so much. Just a super, super cool dude. I really do hope that we can replicate this type of character style again in the future. I was talking about recently in some videos how that I really miss characters, and this is one of the reasons why. You can just never get this type of vibe from an operator in Cold War. This would never be possible with a Cold War operator. You need to have a professional, someone that is equipped with the knowledge and the way about how you portray a character to do some voice lines and have that be the playable character in your zombies games, not just this random dude that's in a suit. Now we've got Sal from Mob of the Dead. Out of all the entire characters in Mob of the Dead, Sal is the most threatening. The look on his character's model even is threatening. I would not screw with Sal. I totally am intimidated by him as a character. I think that Sal is a very, very dangerous man. And right next to Floyd from Shadows of Evil, I think he's one of the most ruthless and unforgiving characters. I totally believe him when he talks about wanting to kill people and do this, that, and the other to everybody. Very, very convincing. Once again, just we need to get more characters like this again instead of the operator thing. This is, once again, another prime example. Just a really cool character, man. Next is Jackie fucking Vincent. Oh my god, dude, I love this character. Jackie has grown on me so much throughout the years. I used to fucking hate him when I was 15, when Black Ops 3 first came out. I used to think that him just saying his name and saying, like, do you know who the hell I am type of thing was so annoying. But it's just funny now. Like, it's really, really funny. Every single time that I load up on Shadows of Evil, I'm hoping I can get Jackie, just because I love to just goof around with my friends and just pretend to be him. I go up to, like, people in lobbies, I'll be like, I'm Jackie fucking Vincent, and I'm, like, doing this, that, and the other, and I get into character with him. He's just so funny and over the top. Like, Jackie's probably the best version of an over the top character since, like, Richtofen. I'm not even joking you. His character, the way he's portrayed, is just so humorously over the top that it's funny. It's just really funny. I love going around saying I'm Jackie fucking Vincent. I love going around talking about like you talking to me. Just the sassy, just Chicago cop style type of character, I guess, is just something that like tickles my fancy, and I really hope that we get another character like this again. Plus also he has ties to the Mob of the Dead crew, so there's also some connection there. Michael Rooker from Call of the Dead. This is my man. This is my character of choice whenever I'm playing on Call of the Dead, because I totally cannot play this map without seeing Merle's face from The Walking Dead, because that is the character I know Michael Rooker for the best out of everything he's ever portrayed. And even though technically, yes, this isn't necessarily Merle, his character shows within this portrayal of his Call of the Dead zombie character. I imagine this as Merle running around trying to kill the zombies on Call of the Dead specifically. And with Michael Rooker's experience from The Walking Dead, this once again just fits him really well. He does a really good job as a zombie survivor character, and I once again hope he does more stuff like this. Primus Nikolai. So this is where we're starting to get into like the S tier characters if this was on an actual tier list. So over the years, Primus Nikolai ended up getting portrayed as the main character of the entire group, the one to save them all. He was the main guy that ended the original storyline when he ended up sacrificing everybody, including himself, at the very end of Tag der Toten. And one of my favorite things from the entirety of Call of Duty was the ending cutscene to Garage Crow V, where Nikolai was talking to the Ultimus version of himself. It felt like it was trying to represent when we have inner turmoil with our own selves, where we're trying to wonder about like why we did this action, and are we a good person, and judging ourselves based off of our past. And it was very emotional and understandingly empathetic because of the fact that there was this clash between the old Nikolai and the new Nikolai, the best and the worst versions of technically the same character. It felt very relatable. Primus Richtofen. This is another character that I really fell in love with over the years because I felt so connected to him. And even though I didn't really care for Black Ops 4 that much in comparison to Black Ops 3, I really did feel the emotional impact of the Blood of the Dead ending cutscene where Richtofen sacrificed himself. I didn't think Call of Duty Zombies could make me feel genuinely moved by a character's actions, because Call of Duty's never really been like a emotional story. But it was very tragic and sad to see Richtofen die. And I will remember that cutscene for how impactful it was, because the way that the emotional portrayal was within the voice lines, you felt the really just raw hurt when he said the things that he said. Like, you won't even remember me. That just... I felt that, man. I really did. It was definitely a massive tearjerker, and I really do like this humanized and less psychotic version of Richtofen. Now, even though I do love the Primus version of Richtofen, overall in general, I would have to say that I still like Ultimus Richtofen better, and it's very rare that I pick a character for their humor over their personality. Normally, I like characters more like Primus Richtofen, where they're doing something for a noble cause and they're the good guy of the group. But Ultimus Richtofen is not that. He's definitely a villain, and I normally very rarely have a villain this high up on my list, because Richtofen on the Ultimus side is very evil and corrupted, but I just love the voice lines this guy has. I'm not even joking. When I say this is that he's just got overall better voice lines, I am not kidding. His voice lines are more funny, they are more interesting to listen to, and I rather would play as Ultimus Richthofen just out of pure honesty. Primus Dempsey. Dempsey is my favorite character. It's totally fair also to say that my decision is also probably influenced just by where I've grown up in, because I am an American and I do have a lot of similar beliefs to Dempsey, and I've also just been surrounded by this type of media that portrays these types of characters as the main protagonist and the good guys of what we watch, and that's fine. If it's influenced, I don't mind, because even if it was, I still end up just having those beliefs nonetheless. I do like Dempsey as a character. But I will say this is I do like Ultimus Dempsey slightly better because of his humor and the fourth wall breaks. They're still very similar to each other, although that the Ultimus Dempsey, I will say, is just a little bit more unhinged in comparison to the Primus one, which is at least a little bit more tame. So I will say this, is that the reason why Ultimus Dempsey is my absolute favorite is because of the humor. But they still have the same values at the end of the day. They're American soldiers, it's just that Ultimus Dempsey's more blunt, where he's kind of like, guns, explosives, women, alcohol, death, rawr. So yeah, both versions of Dempsey are fun, they're really cool to play as, and overall, they're just my comfort character. I'm the most familiar and can relate to them the most, but they're also just good human beings in general. Or at least the Primus one is. The Ultimus one, that's debatable. At least slightly debatable. But yeah, guys, that is going to be my official ranking of every single Call of Duty Zombies playable character from worst to best. Let me know how you guys would rank the characters in the comment section down below. Would you rank them pretty much the same as me, or is there any changes you would make anywhere throughout the list? Please feel free to let me know via the comments down below. And before you guys do take off, please also feel free to drop a like, because it shows your guys' support and it'll be allowing this video to pop up in the algorithm more easier, so that way this video can be more recognized by others. But with all that being said, guys, I hope you end up enjoying today's video, and I hope you end up enjoying seeing another YouTube video from the most unique YouTubers you're ever going to see. Thanks for watching, guys. I love all of you, and peace out.
Hey, meme lords, Jesus here, and you better have enjoyed that video there by the eternal god Daddy Ninja. You should probably subscribe too, or the mighty Moab will come for your balls. If you enjoyed the video, you might like it too. And give me the memes. Flash, bang, boom!
Please feel free to share your guys' list. It sounded like Elmer Fudd. Please share your lists.